In this episode, I share how to identify you are in survival mode and steps you can take to calm and soothe your mind and nervous system. Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, Season 4, where we are focusing on mastery. The last 3 seasons, I gave you the information. Now we're focusing on integrating it into our lives and embodying it. If you are ready to master your thoughts, emotions, and patterns to feel whole, fulfilled, and really grounded in who you are without dimming your shine so you can live the abundant life that you truly desire, then you are in the right place. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? I am manifesting grounded confidence and internal peace and acceptance. I know that's a lot, but I have really been doing some deep diving lately and noticing when I make decisions in my life, am I doing it because I care about what people think, or there's some type of external thing that I feel like this decision is going to help me maintain or manifest? And so really making decisions that are good for me and good for my soul. And that comes from being grounded in who you are, grounded confidence, grounded in your values, and having full self-acceptance. And when I say full self-acceptance, it's really having awareness around your light and your dark, your light and your shadow, and not operating from a place of suppressing or dismissing parts of yourself. So feeling whole and fully accepting yourself for who you truly are and having peace with that. You know, we hide so many parts of ourselves, and what we're discussing today is survival mode. And I think that since I've done a podcast episode about this a year ago, so episode 136 I filmed a year ago, I have learned so much since then. I had to address this topic again, and I truly believe that as a society, we are in chronic burnout and survival mode, and we don't even know it. We don't even have awareness around it. So that's why this podcast episode is really important to me, and the work that I've been doing to really be grounded in who I am and what I value, and not living my life for what it looks like on social media. So many people are living their lives for other people, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's for image, whether it's for social media, and complete strangers that you don't even know. But it's like, it honestly has us in survival mode. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, if you've never sat with the concept of survival mode, I recommend starting with episode 136, which is titled Survival Mode. It's a really great episode to scratch the surface. Now, a year later, I have a lot more knowledge and awareness, and we're gonna dive deeper into understanding survival mode. So what I've realized since doing that episode is survival mode is a lot more than money. Now, it's evident if you are in survival mode and you're constantly stressed about money and finances and making ends meet and hustling and grinding to make money. However, it is so much deeper than that. So really quick disclaimer, there is no quick fix to getting out of survival mode. A lot of it has been programmed in us since childhood. So let's say you're in your 30s, you can't expect 30 years of programming to end quickly. So my goal with this episode is to create awareness. Once you have awareness, you can start taking steps and making different decisions. So I remember when I did the first episode on survival mode, I created this really cool infographic with 6 steps on how to get out of survival mode, and I shared it with my business therapist, and she said something along the lines, I don't remember exactly, but she said something along the lines of like, it's not that easy, like to get out and stay out. it's not that easy. It's a process. It's a lifestyle. It's making decisions every single day and being consistent with them to really have you in a place of grounded peace and grounded in your values. So let's dive in. So what is survival mode? If you Google the actual definition, it says stressful stimuli cause a physiological and psychological response called our survival mode. This mode involves the release of stress hormones and the activation of our stress response systems. Our mind and body become focused on combating danger. So in other words, our nervous system is in a constant state of fight, flight, or freeze. And you know I talk about the nervous system all of the time. So that stress response system is that fight, flight, or freeze. My definition of survival mode is a constant state of hypervigilance and the inability to relax, see clearly, or feel safe because of high levels of stress, anxiety, and urgency. So I've been using the term hypervigilant a lot lately, but I want to break down what it means just in case you're not 100% familiar with the word. So hypervigilance is the body's way of protecting you from threatening situations. It can occur in an environment where you perceive an extreme threat. Hypervigilance is a state of increased alertness. If you're in a state of hypervigilance, you're extremely sensitive to your surroundings. It can make you feel like you're alert to any hidden dangers, whether from other people or the environment. So I personally feel like ever since the pandemic, we all have been a little hypervigilant. And then add in things like the recent hurricane. So when you have these things that are uncontrollable and worldwide, and obviously the hurricane wasn't worldwide, but the pandemic was, it causes a threat to our safety. And when that happens, we have certain stress responses, like our body physically releases stress hormones to help us navigate that stress and that worry and that anxiety and that fear because of a lack of safety. So if you have anything on top of the pandemic, anything on top of the hurricane, like if you have personal situations going on in your life, there's a lot of people going through a lot of transitions right now, like divorces, quitting jobs, quitting their businesses and getting jobs. I mean, there are so many major transitions happening right now. And what I think about survival mode is if we are making decisions from a place of survival, we're not making decisions that are for our highest good. I have a huge decision I have to make in my life soon. And that's why I say my manifestation right now is internal peace and grounded confidence. So my decision is grounded in what's for my highest good and not what looks good and what people will think and, what'll look good on social media. So really being grounded and aligned with your purpose, aligned with who you are, aligned with your values versus being in this hypervigilant state because you can't see clearly. When you are in survival mode, you're only seeing through a lens of trauma. So it's really important that we understand this and we take the steps to get out of survival mode. So I have a really long list of ways to identify you are in survival mode. So I just want to say that there is no judgment here, and this is not to create shame or embarrassment around any of this. This is to create awareness so we can take the steps to really ground into who we are, our values, and internal peace. So not that external, post on social media that I'm doing my self-care. It's really that feeling inside. And if you feel it inside and then you want to post about it, good, but don't just post about it. Don't just post, I'm doing yoga, I'm moving my body, I'm meditating, I'm pausing. Like actually feel it inside first. Okay, signs you are in survival mode. Everything is urgent. Urgency is a trauma response. Severe stress and anxiety, Stress and anxiety are at an all-time high right now. Severe worry, lack of focus or concentration. You don't allow yourself to feel joy or happiness. This is huge. A lot of people, like, joy, bliss, excitement is so foreign to people right now. They don't allow themselves to feel joy or happiness, and if they do, they catch themselves because they're like, oh, the other shoe is going to drop. I can't sit in this joy or happiness so much, because they've been so conditioned to be in a constant state of worry or urgency. You feel like you have to be doing something. So like that feeling of like go, you have to be doing something, you have to be productive. Now, the productivity thing is huge. When I do the energy analysis at Bliss Bar Meditation Studio and I see an imbalance in the solar plexus, usually when it's stuck on the masculine side, so our masculine side is our right side and the solar plexus is like stuck on that right side, usually that's an indication that the person ties their self-worth to productivity. And so that is survival mode. When you feel like you have to be doing something, you have to be productive, you have to be working, you have to be getting stuff done, that is survival mode. So the next one is you can't pause, which is a continuation from the last one. You can't pause. With the work that I do, you would not believe how many people are uncomfortable sitting through an hour sound bath. I mean, they get like fidgety. Now, granted, lying on the floor can be uncomfortable, but literally just the process of sitting and not doing something for an hour is so uncomfortable for so many people, and their minds are racing. And I actually had a woman look at her phone in the middle of a sound bath. Typically, I don't allow people to bring their phones in, but it's not like I'm like checking pockets to make sure that they don't. So she somehow got her phone in and looked at her phone in the middle of a sound bath. Like, that is survival mode. If you cannot unplug for an hour. So idle time makes you uncomfortable. You can't sit in silence, and you have to fill the space with something. Music, an audiobook, scrolling on social media. You have to be filling your time with something. So the inability to just sit and be in silence. And this is something that I definitely had a hard time with. Like, I do very well with like taking time for myself, but I fill my time for myself with something. Like, I still have to be doing something. Like, I have to be listening to an audiobook because I'm learning, so I still feel productive. And so it's a little sneaky, because sometimes we think like, oh, well, let me go do a yoga class, let me go work out. Like, yes, these things are good for you. However, being able to just sit and be and not be doing something, we need more of that as a society. And if you're not able to do that, that is a huge indication of being in survival mode. And so having that idle time, and my business therapist calls it white space in your calendar, that is really important, but we'll get to that later. So the next one is you have heightened reactions to everything. Everything feels big, or the other end of the spectrum is you've completely numbed and you don't feel anything. Even if the world is caving in around you, you don't feel anything. So it's extremes at both ends of the spectrum. So you don't like being alone, or the opposite end of the spectrum is you don't like being around people because you don't trust people. So again, it's the extremes at either end of the spectrum. So the next one is you feel like you have to respond to everything right away. Now, in a time of social media, this is huge. If someone messages you, you feel like you have to respond right away. If you're a business owner and someone emails you, you feel like you have to respond right away. That is survival mode. A lot of times when, especially in business, if we feel like, oh, I got to get to this customer right away, but it's the middle of the night or it's outside of business hours, but you feel obligated to respond, that is a trauma response. And one of the reasons why I started working with my business therapist is to identify where trauma was showing up in my business and where I didn't have good business boundaries. And when I say working with her has been completely life-changing, like it really has been completely life-changing, because I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19. So throughout all of those years, I've made a lot of mistakes, but I never realized how trauma was playing out in my business, and feeling the need to check my email and respond to clients outside of business hours is survival mode. It's a trauma response because you fear losing this client. And if you fear losing the client, then you're not sticking to your boundaries, your healthy business boundaries. And it just creates this pattern of you not having boundaries. As a result, you not feeling comfortable and safe in your business if you don't have business boundaries. So it literally shows up in all aspects of our life, in our personal lives, in our family life, in our business life. So having boundaries and really being grounded in your values, it's important across the board. Okay. And so even personally, if you don't have a business and you feel like you have to respond to everything on social media, and like you can't take a break from social media, and when I say take a break, like some people like shut down their whole entire Instagram and they delete the app off their phone for like a week. That's extreme, and that's still survival mode. That's still a trauma response. Like you should be able to say, I'm not getting on social media today, and be able to honor that without having to delete the app off your phone. Like definitely having some self-control. So self-control also sits in our solar plexus, which is the same chakra that deals with self-worth and boundaries. So do you see how everything is correlated? Okay, moving on to the next one. You don't feel safe. You don't feel safe in your body. You don't feel safe in your career or business. You don't feel safe at home. And this is not just physical safety, but also emotional safety. And emotional safety is something I've really been focusing on a lot lately, because I realized after doing, like deeper inner work, that I didn't have a lot of emotional safety in my life. So really being aware of what that feels like for you. And when you grew up in an environment where there was trauma, you may not know what emotional safety even feels like. And then when you feel it and experience it, you're like, oh shit, how did I tolerate this crappy behavior for so many years? Because you were in survival mode. So I know a lot of people don't like talking about trauma and heavy emotions, but it's like if we don't talk about it, we won't feel it and have awareness around it, and you can't heal what you can't feel. And so the process of unfreezing these memories and thoughts and feelings and emotions is really uncomfortable. However, it's the steps that needs to be taken in order to feel whole and fulfilled and experience that inner peace and that grounded confidence. So I know the work isn't always fun, but it is worth it. I can promise you that. It is worth it. It may not be fun. It's going to be hard and uncomfortable as fuck, but it is worth it. Especially to feel safe. Like I feel everyone should feel safe. Feel safe in your body. Feel safe in your business. Feel safe in your career. And so many people don't. And you definitely should feel safe in your home. So these are things that I feel like are basic necessities. And if you don't feel safe, how do you expect to live to your full potential? How do you expect to manifest a life that you truly desire? These are the basic foundations of that. And so many people don't feel safe in their body, their careers, their businesses, their homes. Like, we have to go back to the drawing board and fix it. And this is where it starts. So the next one is you're always on guard. You have trust issues and you think the world is out to get you. The next one is putting off your basic needs. So basic needs could be just like taking care of yourself. And I think this one is really important for people who are moms, also entrepreneurs, because, One of my toxic patterns as an entrepreneur is forgetting to eat. Like when I have a really busy day in business, I don't always eat. So I have to make sure that like I have a meal prepared in some way to where it's like right in my face and I have no excuse. Because if I have to like cook it or drive to go pick something up or just like do something to like feed myself, I just won't eat. And obviously that's not healthy. So putting off your basic needs is survival mode for sure. And it's not healthy. But when it comes to parents, a lot of times you put the need of your children or your partner before your own, like your household, instead of taking care of yourself. And I always say you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of you first, because if you allow your cup to become depleted, you're no good to anyone. So that goes for parents, that goes for entrepreneurs, that goes for everyone. So the next one is you are disconnected from your desires. It is amazing how we forget, suppress, or deny our desires. And that's our life force. You know, our desire sits in our sacral chakra, and our sacral chakra is our zest for life. If you are disconnected from your desires, you're not going to have that zest and that will to live and keep pushing. You have to stay connected with your desires. It is so important. The next one is you sweep things under the rug that you don't want to face. And we'll talk about this one a little bit later when we get into the steps of getting out of survival mode. The next one is you hold on to toxic situations out of fear and low self-worth. And we'll have some journal prompts at the end of this episode that I invite you to sit with and answer these questions for yourself. The next one is you only see the world through a lens of trauma. And this one is huge. And I started realizing how many people in my life are in this survival mode, and it causes them to not really be able to be present and hear what people are saying, hear what I'm saying. And it's like, when you're in survival mode, you're literally in this panic where you feel like people are attacking you. And sometimes the reality is they're not. They could be trying to help you, but you see them as a threat. That's that hypervigilance. You see them as a threat. And I know that like I've had a couple of recent situations, 2 people in my life, where I was saying something like really supportive and really kind in my mind, and the people saw what I was saying as a threat because they were triggered. And it was like, on one hand, I think a natural response is like, what the hell, you know, I've worked so hard on being a good communicator and I know that I'm communicating this well, which would have been my old response, you know, before I did all my deep inner work. But because I've done some deep inner work and I've gone through the Brene Brown Dare to Lead training certification, I was just like, this is an opportunity for me to have compassion, because I understand this person is not hearing what I'm saying because they're viewing everything through a lens of trauma. And when you're viewing everything through a lens of trauma, it doesn't allow you to hear what is actually being said. You go into protection mode and you don't hear what the person is actually saying. And I had to notice like how, well, I always ask myself so I can notice, how is this showing up in my life? Where have I been triggered and not really saw the situation for what it was? And just sitting with that is so powerful. It's data that allows you to process in a healthy manner versus from a lens of trauma where you're going to repeat toxic patterns and potentially create toxic energy and damage relationships, you know? So it's like, where can I have compassion for these individuals, and where can I have compassion for myself when I'm triggered and I'm viewing something through a lens of trauma? So compassion is a huge key. So I actually don't have that on the list of like how to get out of survival mode. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there now, that compassion is huge through this process. Compassion and acceptance. So I want you to think about how many off of this list did you check off? And then also wonder like how many are not even in your awareness, because we do have blind spots. So if you have to go back and listen to the list again, definitely do so and really, write down like, yep, this resonates. Yep, I do this. And again, it's not about judgment. It's not about creating shame or embarrassment or guilt. It's about building awareness so we can make better decisions and we can send ourselves compassion and send others compassion so we can have the healthy relationships that we desire. And, throughout life, no matter how good of a communicator you are, you're going to be triggered. You're going to trigger someone else. But having the patterns, the healthy patterns to navigate it when it does happen. I used to think, if I work on my communication and I work on being vulnerable and expressing my needs and desires, then I won't trigger people and people won't trigger me because I've done the work. That's not the case. That is not the case. It is now that I have these tools, when I trigger someone or when someone is triggered by me or when I'm triggered, I know healthy steps to take to navigate the situation. And sometimes navigating the situation brings you and the individual closer. And sometimes it ends the relationship. And we have to be willing to let things go or let things fall away that are not serving us. And if you have any type of abandonment issues or fear of rejection, that can be really hard. And so I also should add in there, like, abandonment issues and fear of rejection, that's also, survival mode as well, because just even applying it to business, if you fear losing a client, that's survival mode. That is survival mode, especially if the client is toxic. One piece of business advice I received is like, don't be afraid to fire a client. Like, the client isn't always right. We actually talked about this in the last certification that I did. The client is always right is a fawn trauma response. So there are clients that will try to take advantage, and it's important that you set healthy boundaries in your business. So yeah, it shows up in every single area of life, and it's important that we have awareness around it so we can build a life that feels really good to us. And even when we have a life that feels really good to us, we will still have challenges, but with these tools and awareness, we're able to navigate the challenges in a healthy manner. And again, I said this earlier, but I believe society is in chronic burnout and survival mode. We're programmed to hustle, grind, go, go, go. So pausing and taking time for our mental and emotional health, sitting in silence, or doing something to really integrate our self-care, it feels uncomfortable in today's society because we're programmed to do the opposite. We're programmed to push past our discomfort and go, go, go and hustle, grind, which leads to burnout. And so burnout is the new norm. And we have to change that. Survival mode is the new norm, and we have to change that. So many people don't even know they're in burnout or survival mode. So it's really, really important that we take the steps to repair. So how the hell do we do that? Before I dive into this list, I just want to say that nothing on this list is going to give you instant gratification. It's not a thing you can check off. It's a lifestyle. It's a process. It is the decision to integrate these things in your daily life. So really think about, would you rather take medication for depression, anxiety, and whatever else for the rest of your life? Or would you rather take 10 minutes a day to pause and do some deep breathing, And obviously, for severe trauma, medication may be needed, and I'm not recommending stopping medication if you're on medication. Definitely talk to a licensed professional, but getting to the root cause of the issues and not masking them and continuing with toxic patterns will improve our overall well-being. We're masking and numbing and then continuing with the patterns that are keeping us in burnout, that are keeping us in survival mode. So really getting to the root cause of it and choosing different patterns and adapting them in our lifestyle, that's what's going to make the change. It's not going to be an instant gratification. Okay, so number 1 is pause. Pause. Brene Brown, you know I love me some Brene Brown. Brene Brown says the key to overwhelm is nothingness. Now, she talks about this in Atlas of the Heart, and she's like, nothingness, like doing nothing, like it's an anxiety attack waiting to happen because we're so programmed to go, 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 hustle and grind. So doing nothing is hard, but we have to train ourselves to sit and do nothing. I recommend starting with 10 minutes. No music, no audiobook, no movement, just sit and breathe. We are inundated with information, so our brains are going 180 miles per hour. We need that nothingness. We need it. And it's going to be hard because at first your mind will be racing and it's going to be uncomfortable. But you have to be gentle with yourself, and especially if you're an overachiever, and you're just used to being busy, it's going to be incredibly hard, but you have to just keep at it. Just keep at it. It'll be frustrating and you'll want to do things, but literally set a timer and make the decision to do nothing for 10 minutes. And when the 10 minutes becomes easier, then add to it 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, get up to an hour. And I'm saying do this daily. Like start with 10 minutes a day of doing nothing. Like I have a really great hammock in my by my pool, and I try to, set aside hammock time, but I realize I take a book and I take my phone and put in an audiobook and I'm always doing something. Like I don't just sit in the hammock and just sit. So like I had to check myself, sometimes we'll have to like tweak and refine what we're doing, but I had to check myself and be like, this is not a time to read an audiobook. This is literally just a time to sit. Because, when you're reading an audiobook, it's still that feeling of being productive, of like, okay, well, I'm learning something, and I don't read fiction. So it's not even, and sometimes even reading fiction, it's still escapism from your reality. So literally just sit 10 minutes, really deep breaths, pay attention to what's going on in your body, pay attention to the sensations in your body, pay attention to your thoughts and feelings and emotions, because a lot of times when we go, 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 we are trying to avoid our reality. And what we want to do is be grounded in our reality and get out of the trauma, get out of the numbing and the suppressing and the denying, so really connecting to our bodies. And we're going to do that by sitting in silence for 10 minutes, starting with 10 minutes and then adding on to it. So number 1, pause. The key to overwhelm is nothingness. So where can you schedule nothingness in your schedule? Scheduling white space, that's what my business therapist says. Number 2 is face the stuff that you've swept under the rug. So one of my biggest toxic patterns is procrastinating on the really important things like taxes. If you've been listening to me for a while, I say it every now and then, I literally hate taxes. I will wait until the last minute and then like stress out and be like frantically trying to get them done. And I have an accountant, but I still have to get, information to him. And what I've done is I got a bookkeeper and I downloaded QuickBooks, and like just making decisions to make your life easier. You know what I mean? But like we let these things pile up under the rug, that, we let all the stuff we swept under the rug pile up until it becomes completely overwhelming. But there's literally steps we can take to make life easier and to get out of survival mode. So I have some big things that I want to mention, and this is like real life shit that it's stuff that we don't necessarily like to face, but it's like we have to take care of our mental, physical, and emotional health. And if you're not focused on any of these things, it's definitely a sign of low self-worth. So some of these may be hard to sit with, and again, not about judgment, not about shame or embarrassment or guilt or anything like that. It's awareness to make sure we are taking the best care of ourselves as possible. So some questions I want you to ask yourself: when's the last time you went to the doctor? For women specifically, when's the last time you received your annual pap test, whatever, and received a boob test? Like breast cancer is rampant right now. When's the last time, and this is for everyone, male and female, when's the last time you received an HIV test? Dating these days, there's a lot of people having unprotected sex with people they barely know. So making sure you're taking care of your sexual health. When's the last time you went to the dentist? So I'll be honest, I almost hate dentists as much as I hate taxes. It's one of my goals to get veneers one day, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. But when's the last time you've been to the dentist? When's the last time you checked your credit and your level of debt to income ratio? When's the last time you looked at your spending habits or, your interest rates on your credit cards and stuff like that? Do you have a 401k? Do you have a Roth IRA if you're, a business owner? Do you have life insurance? And some of these things are hard to look at, and we don't really want to look at them, but it's important that we do, because if we don't look at them, it doesn't make them go away. So no shame, no judgment, but it's just like, okay, let me take the step to go schedule an appointment, to make sure I'm keeping up with my health. So many people wait till the last minute to focus on their health. They don't go to the doctor, they don't keep up with things, and then something goes wrong and they're like, but why? But it's like, but have you been taking the preventative measures? So if we really value ourselves and we're really grounded in our values and our self-worth, these are things that we do and steps that we take to make sure that we are living a healthy life, and we do have, retirement or some type of investment to where we're not constantly hustling for the rest of our lives. There are certain steps that we can take to have things in place to support us for rainy days. Building a rainy day fund. You know what I mean? I think there was a study done on how many Americans have over $1,000 in their checking account, and you would be surprised at that number. And so taking the steps, and the thing is, people pay for what they want. People who smoke, for example, how much money do you spend on cigarettes? And people who drink, how much money do you spend on alcohol and wine and going out and fancy dinners? So it's we can't say oh, I can't afford this thing, I can't afford to save. No, it's just other things that you're prioritizing above it. And this type of thing is really hard for some people to sit with. Honestly, I would go to say it's hard for everyone to sit with it, but the people who truly value themselves on a deep level, they're going to sit with it and make the decisions to make sure that they have things in place to prioritize their mental, emotional, physical, sexual, and financial health. So again, no judgment. We live in a society that definitely focuses on how things look on the surface, but people are a hot mess off of social media, And I had to take a really good look at my life and apply this to myself and take the necessary steps to make sure that things behind the scenes were solid. And that process allowed me to feel like I'm truly standing in my power. So knowing the things that you don't talk about on social media and the things that people don't see are taken care of. And even just in business, licensing and contracts and trademarks and copyrights, these are not things we talk about on social media. You see the business and you see all the flashy stuff, but there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes that if you really value your business and you really value the creations that you're creating, making sure you're protecting them legally. We sweep these things under the rug and then it bites us in the ass later. So avoiding being bit in the ass later and taking the necessary steps to protect yourself. And that's mentally, physically, emotionally, sexually, financially, period. So the next one is nurturing yourself and your inner child. I think the whole world has been, hypervigilant since the pandemic, like I said earlier. But if you had anything that happened to you personally, you need even more nurturing. You need even more soothing. And we have to learn how to soothe and nurture ourselves, especially if we had absent parents or critical parents or any type of childhood trauma. We don't necessarily know what nurturing and soothing feels like. So really sitting with, like, what does nurturing feel like to you? What does soothing feel like to you? How can you nurture yourself? How can you soothe yourself? And do more of that, like commit to doing more of that. So go to sound baths, go out in nature more. So go to a park, go to a beach, take bubble baths, wrap yourself in a fluffy blanket. Whatever you have to do to soothe and nurture yourself, commit to doing that on a regular basis. Like, commit every single day 10 minutes to just sit and be and do nothing, sit in silence for 10 minutes, and then a certain amount of time to nurturing yourself. Like, what can I do to nurture myself today? Like, ask yourself that every morning. And for me, I'm someone where I like intuitive self-care, so I check in every morning, like, okay, what do I need today to fill my cup? And every day that's going to be different, because I feel like, I'm not someone who can do the same exact thing every single day. So I'm more intuitive of like, okay, what do you need today, self? And whatever comes up, I honor that. Sometimes I want ice cream. Sometimes I need to move my body. And honestly, part of the energy analysis that I do at Bliss Bar, we have cycles. We have a mental, physical, and emotional cycle, and the moon impacts our cycles differently. So there's going to be times where your physical cycle is high, and that's times where you want to move your body more. There's going to be times where your physical cycle is low, and you may not want to move. You may need to do some very gentle stretching, or just not move. Like, it may be a time to just sit on your couch and wrap yourself in a blanket. So I definitely am an advocate for intuitive self-care, checking into your body and asking what it needs, and what will feel nurturing to you, what will feel soothing to you, and doing it. Number 4 is surround yourself with emotionally safe people. So like I said earlier, not everyone knows what emotional safety feels like. And I don't think we have a lot of it these days, because, we live in a world of social media where there's a lot of trolls and everyone speaking their opinion and being mean and rude because they're behind a computer screen. So there's not a lot of emotional safety. But I think that we are waking up as a society to understanding that gaslighting, manipulation, and narcissism is a real thing. And even like TikTok, they talk about gaslighting and narcissism on TikTok all the time. So I think we're waking up as a society, and some of the generational patterns that have been passed down are coming to an end, because this generation is like, we're not tolerating this shit anymore. It stops here, which is a great thing. And also committing to surrounding yourself with emotionally safe people. So learning what emotional safety feels like and looks like to you, and committing to that. And sometimes it does cause people to fall away when you start setting healthy boundaries. So it's really important that you are gentle with yourself during the process, but commit to being grounded in your self-worth, because sometimes we can stop our healing and growth journey, or stop our transformation, to hold on to people. And we can't do that. So do not stunt your growth to hold on to someone because they're not emotionally safe. You have to allow what's not serving you to fall away. And sometimes relationships transform and they become healthy, and sometimes they just don't. And you have to be willing to allow them to fall away. And that process isn't easy. And this is definitely not meant to cause shame, loneliness, isolation. there are supportive people out there. There are emotionally safe people out there. But if we are not used to it, sometimes we don't know what it looks like or feels like. And so the process, can be a little bumpy. But trust yourself and trust your intuition. And, I think for me, I haven't always been emotionally safe because I didn't know what it meant. And then, I started doing all this work, and definitely going through Brene Brown's program and my business therapist, her Do No Harm program, definitely helped me a lot. And one of the things that I say in my certification is we have to honor people's journeys. So as sound healers, we want people to heal and feel their best, but we have to honor their journey. We can't control their journey. And sometimes healers want to try to control the journey, and they want them to have a great experience and heal and transform because it's a little ego boost to the healer. But it's really about them. It's really about them and the pace that they want to heal, grow, and transform. And we have to honor that. It's not about us. It's not about stroking our ego. And so I've been applying this in my personal life as well. I always want to help, and I always want to offer, my services and my feedback and my knowledge, but really just honoring people's journey. I may know ooh, that's trauma, but it's not my place to share that with someone if they don't ask. So I think that has allowed me to truly hold space and be more emotionally safe for the people in my life. And it's a practice. It doesn't just happen overnight. So you're gonna have people who, they may not be emotionally safe, but if they're committed to loving you in the way that you want to be loved, they will commit to doing what needs to be done so you feel emotionally safe with them. And I know that I've set some boundaries in my life where I'm hey, I need emotional safety. And some people did not follow those boundaries and they're no longer in my life. And then some people did, and it brought us closer. And look, that made me a little emotional, and that really touched my heart on a whole other level. Having people that are committed to helping you feel emotionally safe, people like that are freaking priceless. So if you do have emotionally safe people in your life, send them gratitude, hold them, give them a big squishy hug. Because it's important, and we need that, and we need more of that. We need a community of emotionally safe people so we feel safe to get out of survival mode. Okay, number 5 is work with a quality professional. I always say quality because not all coaches are great, not all therapists are great, not all healers are great. So making sure that you're working with a quality professional. And it's important to work with a professional. I know some people think that they can do it on their own, but we all have blind spots. We know what we know what we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times we'll go just to where we're comfortable, but on our own, we're not going to do the deep inner work that's going to make a big difference. It's just like working out. If you work out by yourself, you're not going to push yourself hard to do that extra rep, versus if you work out with a personal trainer, they're going to push you a little harder because you'll stop where it's comfortable for you. So that quality professional will hold you accountable and not enable you. So that's really important. Okay, to wrap it up, I have some journal questions that I invite you to sit with. And again, not about judgment, not to create shame, but to build awareness. We want to clear out everything that we swept under the rug, and we want to be free and liberated and feel powerful, and not just look powerful on social media, but truly feel powerful in our beings, and being able to really stand in your power and know that you've taken steps to creating a healthy, whole, fulfilling life for yourself. That's powerful. Committing to your self-worth, that is powerful. Okay, journal questions. What do I always have a sense of urgency about? So this is about building awareness. Like, what is always urgent for you? What do I always have a sense of urgency about? What do I feel will go wrong if I commit to pausing for 10 minutes a day? So if you're a parent, if you are an entrepreneur, like, what do you think will go wrong if you commit to this practice every day? What are you talking yourself into? Is there a situation I know is not good for me that I talk myself into staying in? What are you talking yourself out of? Is there a goal or desire you're talking yourself out of because of fear, self-doubt, or a lack of self-worth? What are you protecting yourself from? Where are you lying to yourself? And this is one definitely sit with, take some deep breaths, maybe put on some binaural beats to like really connect to yourself, because I think you have to peel a few layers back to really be honest with yourself about where you could potentially be lying to yourself. So I'm going to say it one more time. This is not about judgment. This is not anything that I want you to feel shame around. So having compassion for yourself and having compassion for anything that comes up doing these exercises. We have to be honest with ourselves and look at our shadows in order to feel whole and have a fulfilling life and get out of survival mode. So as you see, survival mode is so much more than just making money. Like, money is just the surface. Like, we need money to survive, obviously, like bills, and then, you know, someone like me who loves a luxurious life, I have a lot of bills and a lot of expensive habits. But it's so much more than just money. And so diving deeper and clearing out the debris that we swept under the rug so we can truly stand in our power, and not just to look good on social media, but feel it in the depths of our soul. And so I hope you found value from this. I would absolutely love to hear your feedback. You can always reach out to me at Niajae, Niajae on Instagram. And I always love hearing your stories and how this podcast has impacted you when I am facing challenges. Hearing your stories definitely helps keep me going when I feel like, you know, everything feels urgent and I have so many things on my plate and I don't have enough time in a day to get it all done. So definitely share with me what you received out of this episode and how this makes an impact. And if this was hard to listen to, I mean, share that with me too, because this work isn't easy. So if you're leaning in and you're doing the work and you're doing these journal exercises and really looking at these things, I celebrate you. And it's important that you celebrate you too, because a lot of people don't commit to doing the work and actually integrating it and embodying it. So if you're actually doing the work, that is worth celebrating. That is worth celebrating because you deserve it. You are worthy. You are enough. All right, Eminem, that is my message for today. Until next time, be decadent. Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.